Hello, welcome back. It's Mr. DC Universe Freshman, and today we're going to have another video. This one's going to kind of be a quick one for y'all. Okay, so today we are talking about what we all been waiting for, prequels, and how I feel like some prequels trump the original story and some do not. Now, let's get into some prequels. Okay, so first of all, let's say some of the most famous prequels: Red Dead Redemption 2, Welcome to Derry, Better Call Saul, Raising Kanan. These are some of the notable prequels that people say are not just good and surprisingly good for a prequel, because people say, oh, prequel, oh, it's gonna be boring, it's just going to be, oh, it's just gonna be boring, we already know how the story ends, oh, prequel's boring. But then you watch these shows or these movies or play these games and it's like, oh my god, the prequel was amazing and better than the original story. And how is that? Because, see, there are two types of prequels. You can either have a prequel that's about characters in their early years that you saw in the original story, which, like, Welcome to Derry, Raising Kanan, and Red Dead Redemption, and Better Call Saul are. And two, you can also have a prequel that takes place in the same universe but's in the past and with totally new characters, which these series also do to various extents. But why do we love prequels so much? But I can't answer why you may like a prequel, or maybe you don't like prequels. But here is why I love prequels. Cause I love prequels, all of these prequels, and I like them more than the original story. Because, for one, what do prequels usually focus on? Because since you already know how the story ends, it's less the story originally, it may have shock value, or it may have, oh, surprising moments, or this, that. But what do prequels usually focus on? Character and character development. And I feel like Raising Kanan, Welcome to Derry, Better Call Saul, in Red Dead Redemption do this perfectly. Say Red Dead Redemption, we know the Vanderlyn gang is going to fall apart. We know that it's not going to work. But what does it do? It intrigues us with the character of Arthur Morgan, the best main character in gaming history. What does it do? It intrigues us. It pulls us in with his character. His character is just so fresh released. Like, you get so much with his character. And I'm not saying John Marston, you don't get much with John Marston. But it's just so much about his character. His character feels so real. It shares so much time. And in Red Dead Redemption 1, you don't get that much time with John. You just kind of playing the game. You don't get those personal moments, those deep moments with John the same way you do in Red Dead Redemption 2. But when you play Red Dead Redemption 2 and you play the John part after Arthur dies, you get those moments with John, because it's like, oh my god, now it all makes sense. Now you can see it from the beginning, when you even see the character development of John. Him going from being an uncaring husband and a deadbeat dad to actually caring for his family. You get to see all these moments, the betrayal, the hurt, the reason why he was so callous and just gave up his friends to the law. You get to see that. And then let's get into something else. My personal favorite, Raising Kanan. Kanan was always one of my, actually he was my favorite character in the original Power. What does that say about me and my cutthroat? Probably not, but I'm just saying I kind of like his character because it was complex and he was kind of crazy. But let's get into it. We seeing Kanan be so cold, and even if you even if you don't like Raising Kanan, because some people don't like Raising Kanan because it's a prequel and you don't see any of the original characters like Ghost, Tommy, and stuff, you'll be like, dang, what made this nigga so cold? What kind of environment he grew up in? Especially if you're like a psychology major like I am. You're like, what kind of environment did he get in? It's like, is it something like conduct disorder that makes him as the way? Is he a psychopath? Is he an antisocial personality disorder? But then you see kind of what happens, and this is kind of why I can, even when Kanan does fucked up shit like what he just did to Marvin, I can kind of see why. The family that he grew up in, it's like, you got to think about this. It normalizes violence. Like growing up in a drug dealing family, and this is why I'm glad they chose that route. It normalizes violence. So he's already normalized to violence and to do violence. We even see in the first episode he's willing to shoot G Wiz. Even though he gets traumatized by that, he's still willing to do that because violence was such a normal part of his life. And you see why he resented Sean so much and could not connect with him emotionally. Like, even when they were just being casual in the original Power, you saw that disconnect between Kanan and Sean. You saw that they really didn't have a lot in common. But then you get to Tariq, oh, they have this in common. And you can now see young Kanan in young Tariq. You can now see all these things that make them just fleshed out characters. You can see these things that just make them great characters and make them just fleshed out and flesh out their backstory and flesh out why Kanan liked Tariq so much and flesh out why Kanan was so cold in the original Power. You can see him losing friends. You can see that hurting him. You can see him getting manipulated to the point where he can't trust nobody. You can see him getting more and more, seeing more and more violence. So of course he wants to do that violence to other. Of course he's a little bit cold. Of course he's detached. So it's just like you get to see why the characters became the characters that you saw them become. And then you'll get into Welcome to Derry. You get to see all of that. When you get into Welcome to Derry is such a great series because you have characters that you never seen in the original. Like, none of these characters you seen in it, but you kind of either heard of them or something. Like Mike's parents, we never saw Mike's parents, and then once we get used to him as a little boy, and then we saw Mike's granddad, then we see like the way he actually was, like Mike's granddad, and he wasn't actually just this, oh, this town is cursed, because we only saw Mike's granddad once in it. And then you get to see Richie's mom, and you get to see like, oh, she was kind of trying to be the cool girl and stuff like that, and you get to see her transition into actually being a caring person and actually being more like her son. And you get to see all that, and you get to see a younger Pennywise and more bloodthirsty Pennywise, a different take on the character, a kind of different take on the character. And then it's not even just a prequel, it's such expansive that it's a sequel slash too, because Pennywise knows, oh, they are going to kill me. So it's a sequel to the original story too. It's not just even a prequel anymore. So that's cool too. That's what I'm saying. When you do prequels, and well, let me touch on Better Call Saul. Better Call Saul is a good story. I haven't really watched it. I've heard a lot about it, and I watched videos about it, and I realized that you get to see Saul Goodman become from going from a selfless lawyer to a selfish lawyer, and then all of that ends up bad for him. And that's why I love prequels and crime stories, and especially when they do these prequel crime stories. And this is why we need more crime stories. That's why I love the mafia and all this other stuff, but we're going to get into that later. But the main reason I love prequels is because of character. You get to see all this character development. Then it'd be interesting because you get to see, like in Raising Kanan in Red Dead Redemption, you get to see like new replacing new replacing old. And then in stories like other stories, you don't get to see that, but you get to see the new generation replacing the old generation and old things replacing themselves. And like, that's just so cool to me that you get to see this transition into why things are the way they are in the original story. And if you love the original story, prequels will make you love it more. But that is just what I got to say on the prequel thing. I know we're also getting a Vought Rising prequel that's going to explore Soldier Boy, and Soldier Boy is actually my favorite character on The Boys, and I actually feel like Soldier Boy is very misunderstood, but I will be doing a video on that, and that will do it for this video. Until next time, bye bye.